Alright, how's it going, guys? I'm going to be giving you a few basic measurements on this. I'm also going to be taking it apart and showing you some in-depth things about it, some reviews on how it's been. I've had it for almost a year now, so so far it's been working out great. I really don't have any complaints other than, yeah, I mean, that, as you know, this used to be a drawer, or like storage space, so you would lift up the top and there'd be storage space here, but there's almost always stuff all over the place. Now there's a 100-pound lathe on top of it, so I can't even use it for what it is now. So it is downdraft. If I really wanted to sand, something that I didn't want up in the air, things like that. So I did have a downdraft area, but I hardly ever used it. So I'm actually going to be tearing this apart and making room for my new miter saw here that's going to go right where that one is, but this one is extremely smaller than the other one. This is a Black & Decker from the 90s, and it is not accurate, not very good. It only has one bevel angle, which goes like this. So there's no, none of that action. There's no sliding action. It is literally just there. And the worst part about it is it actually has a limit. Like, that's it. Like, this tab sticks up, so you can't put longer pieces on here and cut it and then flip it over, because then this thing gets in the way, which is super annoying. And you figured, oh, I'll just cut it off, but you actually need it to move it around. So it's done me well for the year that I've had it, and I've made a lot of good things on it, but now it's time for the new thing. So without further ado, here we go. So to start things off, I wouldn't change anything about this really. It's, plenty of storage underneath. You can extend it out this way if you want, or that way, literally whatever you want. So let me start by saying this is extremely easy to make. I didn't think it needed any measurements because I was not a woodworker when I made this. I didn't know anything. I just sketched it out on a napkin, bought some particle board, and made this to the specifications of the materials that I had. So this is 48 inches, which is 4 feet, which, as you know, a sheet good comes in 4x8. So this is cut at, here, our first measurement for the evening. So this is cut at 24 inches. So I had 4 of these after cutting this off. So this is 2x4. You got that? Write it down. 2x4, and that is it. Everything is based off of that. So this down here, this longboard here was just, I wanted it up to that edge there. I really didn't care how close it got to this edge. It could be a little closer. Like, if you hit that the wrong way, it might snap many years from now, but this stuff is what I chose particle board because it's very smooth and it's very cheap where I am. I don't know if it's cheap where you are, but it's just so cheap and durable, and I don't care about it. If I spent good money on plywood, I would be a lot more careful, but I don't want to be careful. It's a workbench. It's going to get beaten up. It's going to get paint all over it. It's going to get scuff marks, pencil marks, markers, you name it. So, I didn't care that this would chip. Like, I almost want it to, so I don't feel like I need to keep it perfect for many years. Like, I don't care about the top, and you shouldn't either. So buy something that's cheap and replaceable, and if you spend a lot of money, that's totally cool. It's totally up to you. If I had the money, if money wasn't a thing, this would all be metal, and this would all be store-bought, pre-made. I wouldn't have even tried to make one. So if you are contemplating whether or not you should make one, you can definitely do this style because it is so easy. Again, I don't call myself a woodworker. I just call myself somebody who makes stuff, and I made this, and it was so easy. So here's another measurement. Again, so this part here it is. So this beam goes across, and it was literally measured based off of the width of the miter saw. Not everybody has this exact same miter saw, so I didn't give a measurement on that. If you really want it, here it is. If I can get it, there we go. It was 28 3/4. So if you have that exact saw, 28 3/4 is what you would cut that at. So there's one board here and another board in the back, and then this piece just goes on top. So how I did this was I built the cross beam and then the 2x4, and I didn't put this surface on. So when I put this where it should go, I measured down far enough so that the surface of the miter saw would be flush with the 2x4. And so why I did that is because when I put the surface on, I would just use the same surface to go underneath the miter saw, bringing it up to the exact height of the new surface, the work surface. So, like, because I just had 2x4s when I built this. I didn't have particle board when I built this. So I bought the work surface material after I had the structure built. So what I did, again, I'll explain this again. So I made the miter saw level with this 2x4. There wasn't anything here. These little shims here, that was just, you know, micro adjustments. They don't mean anything other than they're just there because I wasn't real good at measuring this, the height of it anyway. So when I put this 2x4 in, I had that sitting on top of it, and it came perfectly level to this 2x4. And then I went out and bought this particle board as my work surface because it was very cheap. And so I cut this piece to be the surface, and then I cut another piece to go under there. That means the miter saw was raised up the exact height as the surface. And that's what I did for this one as well. Actually, no, I completely lied. This was a little different. So so what I did was I built the saw to be flush with the work surface, just like that, and then added this piece here. And the reason I did that is because I have this really large sled. So when I add the sled to the top of the table right here, the sled will be flush with the saw. And that's literally it. I've gotten so many questions about that, and it is so simple. I didn't really think it through when I originally made the video, so I do apologize that I have to make a follow-up video on it. But again, if you're going to be making stuff on the regular, a workbench should be something you design yourself. It is something for you, for your space, for your tools. You know, it's like, make it yours. You don't need plans. You don't need to buy plans. You could totally do this. It is so easy. So the structure, the actual structure of the saw is literally based around one principle, and that is a 2x4 here, a 2x4 there, a 2x4 there, and a 2x4 there. And that makes a perfect square. It literally doesn't matter if this piece overlaps that piece, or in this instance, this piece overlaps that piece. Just make a square or rectangle, whatever size you want. This one over here is, you know, in this instance, it's 46 inches long. Almost, I think that was one of the only measurements you saw in the video. It just seemed right because I thought I was going to overlap on this side, but I didn't, and I didn't really care. So that's probably why there's so much space over here. But literally just make a box, a rectangle or a square, and then make the exact same size to go on the top, and then connect them with vertical 2x4s. And that is it. That is literally it. Everything else is just a work surface on top of it. So it is a box or square. I keep saying square. I do apologize. It could be a rectangle. I don't mean to discriminate. It could be a rectangle, one rectangle, and then two rectangles. And then vertical 2x4s, whatever height you decide. In my case, it is, let's see, a little over 36.5 inches. But the reason for that is because that's the ideal height for me, because I can bend my arm and, you know, it's not down here where my, you know, I'm 6 feet tall, you know, that's pretty average height. So this is a pretty average height workbench. So if you want something that's really reasonable, go 36. You know, this lathe was 100 pounds and it was kind of a pain to get up to that height. So if you do, you know, if you're older or really young and you know, struggle to, you know, if you're working on something really heavy, you can make it lower if you want. It's literally up to you. Again, I cannot say that enough. Oh yeah, so anyway, this miter saw is literally held up with this beam here, with these here, but again, you don't need those. So one beam up front, one beam in the back. I added these middle supports because I was like, oh, the miter saw is like 1,000 pounds. Nothing's going to hold it. It's going to move. So I was way overly cautious. I'm going to show a video taking this out, and I'm going to stand on this. I'm going to jump on that. I weigh 180 pounds. It'll hold it just fine because it's just screws everywhere. Maybe I can save a few screws and put them back in my jar of screws and use them for something else, because I really went overboard. But I get a lot of questions like, oh, why didn't you use wood glue? It's like, a workbench should never be used with wood glue, because 9 times out of 10 it will be taken apart, modified, moved. All right, so here is a closer view of what was underneath the surface that held the miter saw. So again, it's just this front beam here, the exact same length for the back. And this is, again, this measurement is for the particular miter saw I have. Yours will vary. Like, you know, that's almost 29 inches. Front beam, back beam, and if you were really ambitious and afraid that your miter saw is 1,000 pounds, you just are very strong, you know, do add these if you want. So it is front beam, back beam, this beam, and this beam, and again, this here is as useless as these pieces here. So don't stress yourself. You know, at most add these for cross support, but a good piece of particle board with these two here will be just fine. So here's all the material that I was using to hold up the miter saw, and then here is the staggering amount of screws I was using, plus 2 drywall screws. I don't know how those got in there, but yeah, kind of overkill. Definitely overkill, but yep, the end of an era. Oh well. Okay, yeah, so anyway, this is also just a work surface. It was cut so I can slide it down onto these 2x4s here. These 2x4s are up off the floor about 3 inches. Again, that was just what I felt like doing. I can't remember from the video if I had something stacked underneath here of why it's 3 inches or close to that. Again, it was just, you know, when you have points of contact on the floor, you know, you should keep it to 4 and not have like this entire beam on the floor. You know, you never know if there might be water. I did have water coming in to the basement a while ago, and you know, it didn't get to here, but it got a couple other things, so I'm glad this was up a little bit. So that's one of the benefits, really. But honestly, it's just, I did it, and there's literally no reason. You can make it all the way up to here if you want, and then slide bins underneath. Again, your workbench, your rules, that's pretty much it. And I forget if I've said this already, but I'm going to be making a whole new bench area. So, I mean, that's really it, guys. I mean, please make it your own. You can take measurements. Here, I'll give you the full Monty. Here we go. You ready? The whole thing is 90 3/4 inches, and that's literally by chance. I did not account for that. I didn't account for any of this. Even the views on the video, I didn't account for any of this. So thank you very much for watching all the previous videos, all the previous workbench videos. On to this one. It is the same thing, a little complicated. So it's this design and this design, but this is shorter and attached directly to this. So there's no middle space. It's this attached to this, but these gems here are rotated like that. Again, that's just how I sketched it out on the napkin at the restaurant I was eating. I think it was Applebee's. So props to you, Applebee's. You have tough napkins that can take a marker. And that is it. Please subscribe for more. Thanks. No, so again, if you have this exact saw, you can write down these measurements, but if you don't have this saw, build it to your own specifications, please, because if I give you measurements and you say, oh, it doesn't work, oh, my life, I'm gonna quote myself and say, you don't have the exact saw, so ignore these measurements. So I'm going to measure from the bottom of the piece, not from the floor because there's cheap Harbor Freight casters, but it is 21 inches, almost, not even. That's probably because the measurement of the saw is slightly unstandardized. No, it's 13 inches perfectly. So this isn't even a good measurement. So if you have this exact saw, make the base 20 3/4 inch with a sheet of standard particle board, which is 3/4 of an inch. Hardly. They're never accurate. It's always off by 1/16. This is just a loose piece of MDF with a sled on it, but yeah, it's just a box. And then I did add an extra one here. I don't know why. I don't think it gives it any rigidity other than might have just made its way in there by mistake. But anyway, again, if you have a Harbor Freight nearby, you can get them. Actually, don't get them. They're awful. I got them grossly undersized. These things are probably about to break. I'm going to be disassembling this one as well because thanks to this baby, I'm not going to need the extra large sled. So the extra large sled I originally built because when I was building built-ins, I needed to trim all the 16-inch wide panels that were 8 feet long, and my ceiling is like 7 feet, and like just they all needed trimmed. So I was like, well, I'll build one of those and that'll help me out, but you know, now I have this, so I won't need this. I won't need this workbench. I think this literally might just be a self-standing rollable table saw without any of this junk over here. So that'll help me out big time because then the casters won't be so stressed, and I can more easily roll this over to this as the end feed. And let me say again, don't buy undersized casters just because they're $1 each. Like, these things get stuck on sawdust and you can hear them starting to break, and I feel bad for them, honestly. Alright, so now that I have the saw off as well as the surface that I was sitting on, I could show you sort of the structure of this. It is a little weird. Again, it's just something you can make yourself. It's real simple. So I have this front face here, and it should extend to the length of this piece. I just measured it wrong. It's all good. It still works. No one's getting hurt. So this piece, again, this is fit for my saw, but you know, portable table saws are fairly similar in size, so I'll give this to you here. It's the front face is 27 inches long, and that goes for the top as well. So again, the bottom rectangle, the outer rectangle, is the same for the bottom as well as the top. In this instance, this back piece here, I don't have here. You can just as easily add it there, but it's, you know, it's your preference. I just took, so there's this piece here. It's optional since these two vertical pieces are already, you know, they have plenty of structural integrity that they can carry the load of this side as well as this side of the table. It's all good. If you want, I mean, it's less weight on the casters. My original idea was to have, again, this piece here. There should be another piece here that I just took out because I'm disassembling it right now, scrapping it. But you know, since there's going to be two vertical pieces, you can add two casters on this as well as the back there. So that's a good example there. So you can add two casters, so that's less weight on those. Again, it's just complete preference. So I'll give you another measurement. So here we go. So that's oh yeah, so this front face to that outer 2x4 is about 27 inches. I didn't really measure this perfectly, but it's in the ballpark of 27 inches. The same for the top. And then these little side pieces, I mean, all together, it is about 23 and a half. So minus this width and this width, and you'll get the length of this. So it's in the ballpark of 20 and a quarter. I'll say round it up 20 and a half. Again, it's preference. It's designed for your saw. In this case, it's the Bosch 10-inch portable. Again, so I gave you a full in-depth review or measurements of this guy. Again, it's the same as this, you know, but the work surface is trimmed to be the same size as the 2x4 frame. Whereas for this, I had it, you know, a little bit of an overhang, which helps for, you know, clamps and whatnot. If you clamp something to the table. If you don't clamp to the table, that's totally fine. Again, it's up to you. The only like big difference is for these how these were built. I added this front piece just to give it more stability. I didn't add that on this since my feet will be, you know, in and out of there some bit. So in the back, I have one long piece that stretches, well, on the top here. So this top piece stretches the whole length. That bottom piece does not, but it would give it more rigidity if it spanned the whole length. Again, that got cut short. Just, you know, I was trying to get it done. I was working fast. It really doesn't matter. The whole thing held up. The only thing that didn't hold up, again, were the casters. That's the only problem I had with it. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. I'll give you the overall length of this as well. I think it was 90 something, I forget. So this long span is 69 inches overall. So that means from this end to table is roughly 24 inches. And then the actual work surface is 49 inches by almost 25. Again, I asked them to cut it at a local home store, and it's rough dimensions, really rough dimensions. You can never really get it close on those panel saws, but yeah, this is just a 2x4 frame, and then the vertical legs. Oh, the height of this, the height of the workbench with the casters is just over 36 inches, but without the casters, it's 34 inches. So I measured this out to be 34 inches. I had no idea what the height of the casters would be, but that's it. I also have that there, which is the same as this piece here. Again, completely useless. But anyway, thanks for watching.